Errol Spence Jr. is one of the great boxers of the modern era. One of those fighters that's dominated all competition to the point where they develop an air of seeming invincibility. And that's why it's so incredible that soon he'll be facing a man who can be said to hold the exact same accolades. Terrance Bud Crawford. This is one of the biggest fights boxing has seen in decades. And sometime next month, we'll see one of these warriors taste defeat for the first time in their professional careers, while the other becomes legendary. So in this video, we'll be taking a look at the unique attributes and abilities of boxing's offensive craftsman, and trying to assess if Spence has what it takes to not only beat Crawford, but send him tumbling to the canvas. When all is said and done, the heart of Spence's style is technical pressure fighting. He's a sophisticated bully who piles up damage over rounds, until the competition's body or spirit breaks, whichever comes first. As textbook as Spence is, he fights using all of the tricks, and he's so good at performing his magician-like sleight of hand that these tricks are hardly even ever noticed. If I were to describe Spence as a crafty trickster who used stealth and misdirection to win fights, I would probably get some strange looks at my weekly knitting and crochet group, I mean at my boxing gym. But Spence is more like a ninja than a textbook fencer. His punches are hidden, his opponent seeing only shadows moments before the death blow arrives. His attacks come from unseen angles, and they're set up with moves that are outside of most boxers' skill sets. But before we get there, it's important to note that the reason people think Spence versus Crawford will be an unorthodox boxer versus a technically perfect boxer is that Spence's guard and punches are damn near close to being technically perfect. Errol's punches are tight and economical, and because of this, he can beat opponents to the punch and has the time to slip in small shots where most couldn't. Without this, Spence's more unusual tactics wouldn't work. Crawford usually takes a few rounds to find his counters, and can take some big shots during this early window of the fight. However, it might be hard for him, if not impossible, to find big holes in Spence's defense, because his punches are picture perfect. Any openings will be small and close up quickly. Spence's airtight guard, where he carries his hands close to the center line, not only makes it easier for him to sneak tight shots in, it also does a great job shutting down any counter opportunities. And because Crawford's guard tends to be loose, Spence will have plenty of openings to target, if he can get to them. Whether either man's strategy, Crawford's counterpunching or Spence's war of attrition, can work depends in large part on who ends up dominating with their jab. And the jab is where we start to go down the rabbit hole of Spence's advanced tactics. Spence varies the rhythm of his double jab so well that it becomes impossible for opponents to read it or get his timing down. Spence's jab is the cornerstone of his offense, and without it, he could never get away with the one sloppy tendency he has, flaring his rear arm out wide to wind up for a hard left. Spence's broken rhythm could make it hard for Crawford to read, and therefore harder to set up his counters. If Pacquiao, another southpaw who loves the double jab to cross combo, was as good rhythmically with his double jab, his terrifying left might have knocked out even more opponents. On the other hand, Spence's wind-up rear hand may give Bud one of the few easy openings of the fight, if he can actually avoid those setup jabs. But that will be harder still, as Spence's jab can come from all angles. Look how he paws it from up high so it doesn't slip up off the shoulder, as it usually would against a Philly shell guard if he shot it out straight. But the true secret of Spence's jab is that he uses it for other, more sinister purposes. For instance, he'll leave it out after he's extended his punch in order to further harass his competitors. One way he does this is to pull down his opponent's punches and guarding hand. But this is unlikely to work on Crawford with his looser guard and unpredictable punching routes. But if Crawford lets him, Spence will frame off his head or shoulders instead. This could shut down his movement at best and move him into a punch at worst. Crosses can be turned to frames too, and hooks can pin down posture. Spence will also disrupt his opponent's vision to hide his punches. For such a powerful technique, this is barely ever talked about. But like Lomachenko, Errol lands some of his hardest punches because his adversary never sees them coming. Plus, he has so many ways to close those eye holes that are present in every guard. A far simpler tactic is to just push them. Unbalancing his opponent for a split second puts them behind a beat and hurts their chances at intercepting with the counter. Pulling another rabbit out of the hat. Or were we going down a rabbit hole? I don't know, YouTube's been killing my videos for like 2 months despite higher click-through rate and watch time, so I'm just having fun with this, whatever. How's Rumble, by the way? Anyways, Spence also likes to hide his shoulder on his opponent's head, especially while throwing with his left. This is an essential part of his double jab left combo. Once he's throwing his left, he wants to have his head blocked by his opponent so he can hit them, but they can't hit him. And this also smothers their lead arm. Like the great Henry Armstrong, look him up if you don't know who he is, it's worth it. Spence will press in to pin his opponent's arms so they can't punch while he can. But Crawford also fights mostly southpaw, and this could be one of the few instances in this fight where one of the fighters suffers from that fact. Spence relies on open stance wrestling tactics a good deal at close range. Despite this, at close range, Spence should theoretically have a decisive advantage. But Crawford is very physical and has tools in his grappling arsenal to throw Spence off or push him away. However, if Spence can push and turn him and create openings for his tighter shots while pinning at least one arm, then Crawford could take a lot of punishment that piles up over several rounds. And if you would like to know more about how both stack up at mid-range, you can check out my latest breakdown on Crawford. For now, go watch some of your favorite fights to get hyped up, because I think this will be a truly epic clash of boxing titans. If you want to learn more about boxing or other forms of martial arts, you can check out my books on power, footwork, and head movement, linked below. From the Modern Martial Artist, this has been David Christian, wishing you happy training.